and very assertive, energetic manners. He had a constant air of objecting to everything and everybody on principle. Knowing that I was an orphan, he sometimes took me aside and gave me sound fatherly advice, which I have since remembered, and am now beginning to appreciate. His wife, too, was a kindly, motherly woman, who, because being practically homeless I was often compelled to spend my holidays at school, seemed better disposed towards me than to the majority of the other fellows. Yes, I got on famously at Trigger's. Known by the abbreviated appellation of Scars, I enjoyed a popularity that was gratifying, and, bar one or two sneaks, there was not one who would not do me a good turn when I wanted it. The sneaks were outsiders, and although we did not reckon them when we spoke of the school, it must not be imagined that we forgot to bring them into our calculations in each conspiracy of devilment, nor to fasten upon them the consequences of our practical jokes. My best friend was a mystery. His name was Omar Sanan, a thin, square chap with black piercing eyes set rather closely together, short crisp hair, and a complexion of a slightly yellowish hue. I had been at Trigger's about 12 months, and was 13 when he arrived. I well remember that day. Accompanied by a tall, dark-faced man of decided negroid type, who appeared to be ill at ease in European clothes, he was shown into the doctor's study, where a long consultation took place. Meanwhile, among the fellows, much speculation was rife as to who the stranger was, the popular opinion being that Trigger should not open his place to savages, and that if he came we would at once conspire to make his life unbearable and send him to Coventry. An hour passed, and listeners at the keyhole of the doctor's door could only hear mumblings, as if the negotiations were being carried on in the strictest secrecy. Presently, however, the black man wished Trigger good day, and much to everyone's disgust and annoyance, the yellow-faced stranger was brought in and introduced to us as Omar Sanom, the new boy. The mystery surrounding him was inscrutable. About my own age, he spoke very little English, and would in conversation often drop unconsciously into his own language, a strange one which none of the masters understood or even knew its name. It seemed to me composed mainly of P's and L's. To all our inquiries as to the place of his birth or nationality he remained dumb. Whence he had come we knew not. We were only anxious to get rid of him. I do not think Trigger knew very much about him. That he paid very handsomely for his education I do not doubt, for he was allowed privileges accorded to no one else, one of which was that on Sundays when we were marched to church he was allowed to go for a walk instead, and during prayers he always stood aside and looked on with superior air, as if pitying our simplicity. His religion was not ours. For quite a month it was a subject of much discussion as to which of the 5 continents Omar came from, until one day, while giving a geography lesson, the master, who had taken the west coast of Africa as his subject, asked, "Where does the Volta river empty itself?" There was a dead silence that confessed ignorance. We had heard of the Russian Volga, but never of the Volta. Suddenly Omar, who stood next to me, exclaimed in his broken English, "The Volta empties itself into the Gulf of Guinea. I've been there." "Quite correct," nodded the master approvingly, while Baines, the fellow on my left, whispered, "Yellow Face has been there. He's a guinea pig, see?" I laughed, and was punished in consequence. But the suggestion of the witty Baines being whispered round the school was effective. From that moment the yellow faced, mysterious foreigner was commonly known as the guinea pig. We did our best to pump him and ascertain whether he had been born in Guinea, but he carefully avoided the subject. The information that he came from the west coast of Africa had evidently been given us quite involuntarily. He had been asked a question about a spot he knew intimately, and the temptation to exhibit his superiority over us had proved too great. Not only was his nationality a secret, but many of his actions puzzled us considerably. As an instance, whenever he drank anything, water, tea or coffee,